Wise Wednesdays started on April 1st with a humble episode on forgiveness. Between then and now, we've had heart-led conversations on happiness, stress management, relationships, resilience, public speaking, respecting boundaries, self-discovery, mindset, just being, listening, reclaiming your life, intuition, and even food. I would like to thank all my listeners and the guests who gave me their time and trust. It is because of you that we kept going. It is because of you that we kept growing. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Thank you so, so much. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you so, so much for joining us on episode 82 of Wise Wednesdays with RK. The question that we are asking all of us is about networking, conversations, and I have the right person with me today. We are going to be speaking with Phil Bedford. He is the founder of Rebel Networker. He is a master franchisee of Asentiv and a business growth coach. Apart from that, he is also a professional behavior analyst and a master practitioner of NLP. When I met Phil in 2010, he was into kite surfing, and which is when we got into conversation for an interview. And it brings me immense joy to bring to you Phil. Thank you, Phil, for joining us.
My pleasure. Lovely to be here and great to see you here after all these years.
Yes, I know, to get to speak to you once again after such a long, long time, such a joy. Thank you.
Hi, everyone.
Yes, and today we are talking about building a powerful network. For those of you who know Phil, you know he's all about networking. Even then, it was all about networking, the salsa sessions in the evenings at Wafi. It feels like a different lifetime, doesn't it, Phil?
Oh, it's over 24 years ago now for me. So, yeah, it was a different lifestyle. But don't worry, I didn't have hair then either, so you would have recognized me.
Yes, I do. Thank you. So, Phil, tell us a little bit about yourself and what really drew you into the whole networking conversations and things like that.
Well, actually, it was, I think I was guilty of what a lot of people are guilty of, which is they don't really know what networking is. So I was actually in Dubai and I suddenly had a realization. I was actually in sales and I'd been doing sales in the UK for a recruitment company. I moved to Dubai, exhibition stand sales, and then I did real estate sales. And the interesting thing was, in all these businesses, I was the top salesperson. But I'd never done sales training, and none of the companies spent money on advertising and marketing. So I'm like, well, how can I be the top salesperson if there's no marketing? And I got involved with a networking group, probably about 2006, called BNI.
Yes.
And when I went along to their sessions and started to understand a little bit more, I suddenly realized, I've been networking. I was getting my clients through my contacts, my hobbies, referrals, and I didn't know what I've been doing. And so, of course, that opens up the whole conversation is, what is networking? So what networking is not is cold calling face-to-face. What networking is having relationships with people. And so that was my realization. I've been doing it for years, but didn't put a name to it.
True that. And isn't it so important to build a relationship? I see so many people have like networks of, say, 70,000 followers on LinkedIn, whatever, they've run out of Facebook friend requests and I don't know, they've maxed out on everything. Yet they don't know or haven't built the close connections, even with 10 people. Tell me about building relationships.
Well, I think you need to define there the difference between marketing and building relationships. So if you've got a lot of people who've connected with you at some point in time, then there's some chance that they know you. They may know your name. They know a little bit more. So from a marketing perspective, they may know you, right? So that's brand building, right? In a way that we've never done before prior to social media. But at the end of the day, a relationship is different. A relationship is when you can pick up the phone and say, hey, I need your help. Hey, I need some advice. And the thing is, those 5,000 Facebook friends, they're going to be, they may kind of have seen you around, but try asking them for a lift to the airport.
Mhm.
Try asking them to put themselves out when they're busy. They won't do it. So that's not a relationship. That's not a friend. That's a contact. And I think that's the trouble now. So what people are getting stuck between what is marketing, and that's marketing yourself as well as a brand, and what a relationship is that will actually show up when you need them to.
So I see a very fine line there, because sometimes people, think they're building a relationship, but actually they're not. So how do you really clear cut understand how to differentiate between the two,
I mean, I
marketing
suppose
and
a relationship's, what you want it to be, right? And not every relationship is the same as another. So, for example, I've got some people in my network who are really fantastic people socially, but I wouldn't mix with them in work, because in work they don't hold true to the values that I hold, right? And yet they're fantastic people from my social network, and vice versa. So, a relationship at the end of the day has to be mutually beneficial in the space that you need it to be. And I think it's when we start to expect things from people that they're not ready to give or not able to give, then we start having problems. So I think you define a relationship from what you want from it, right? And that could just be waving at the guy in your building who's a security guard. If he waves at you, you've got a relationship. You've got one with your wife or your husband. So I think we decide what that relationship means to us. You and I have a relationship, Ruqya.
absolutely.
I mean, we met. I still remember turning up at the building you're in, and I remember it was my early days in the UAE, and I just remember walking past a security guard and trying my faltering Arabic, and then bumping into you and getting interviewed. We've had a relationship, and we're not sitting there calling each other every day.
Yeah.
But if one of us needs something, like in the case of this, we reach out and the other one shows up.
So that's what these conversations are about, actually. I mean, when I started hosting these interviews, it was from people from within my circle of genius, as I like to call it, my network, people I've met on social media, people I've interviewed in the past, people I've met at the conferences, now webinars. So it's reaching out to them and asking them, hey, would you be happy to share your skills? Would you be happy to share your wisdom? And that's why we call it Wise Wednesdays.
And I think it's perfect. I mean, then at the end of the day, I think one of the interesting thing about a lot of the more successful people out there is, you see them on a stage or you see them writing a book, and a lot of, not all of them, but some of them lead you to believe they've done it all themselves, and that's rubbish.
No.
Nobody is ever successful on their own. They've all got there with somebody's help. And it was probably some mentor that gave them a nugget that got them there. And I think it's very selfish of us not to share that journey so other people can also jump on and learn. And I think that's the good energy of life, is continuing to give that energy and pay it forward,
Absolutely. Paying forward is so important. And as we speak about paying forward and also building a network, I realize that your profile says you've never cold called. It's always through referrals. So I see referrals as a means to pay it forward.
Yeah, very much so. I mean, so I think you're right. I mean, the thing about it, it's paying it forward. Referrals is an amazing way to help somebody. I mean, we've all had one at some point in time. And if we haven't had a referral, we need to take a serious look at our business and ask what we're doing wrong. But a referral ultimately is someone who believes in you enough to connect you. But there's different levels of referral, of course. But most people are really acting reactively rather than actively or proactively. So I don't want to go into the science of the different kinds of referrals here, because I think everyone would fall asleep. But it's definitely paying it forward, and it's helping other people. And that's the concept, though. If you help enough people, imagine yourself as a wheel, right? So you're in the middle of the wheel, and around you on that wheel is 10, 50, 100, 200, 300,000 people, right? And everything you do is goodwill out, right? Whether it's referrals, helping people, giving them advice, saying nice things, being memorable, whatever it is, everything you do goes out from the center of the wheel. Well, as human beings, we need to find balance. And the thing is, it just goes to say that if you're putting enough out there, that's all going to come back. And if those people are the right people with the right mentality, who just happen to be highly connected, or guess what comes back? The good stuff, right? So, but it doesn't go anywhere if you don't start.
Definitely. So, how do you actually build a strong, powerful network? Because that's the topic for the evening. So tell us a little bit of how do you actually do that?
Well, from my perspective, it's certainly not something that happens by chance. Obviously, it's my living now. So what I've realised is there is actually a science to this,
Hmm.
and it really starts with what do you want your network to do for you. So you have to decide. Well, is it I want it to get me clients, or do I want my network to be an information network, or do I want my network to support me in some way? And once you know what you want your network to do for you, you can then start to select and cherry pick the people you want in your network.
Hmm.
And I actually, I tell you what brought it home to me was I was actually driving I was getting a lift from Moscow City to Moscow Airport, and I was there with my wife and a lady we met in Moscow. She was an Irish lawyer, and we were having this chat in the car. She said, "So Phil, what do you do?" And I was saying, I work with entrepreneurs, and a big part of that is how do you grow your business without spending money,
Hmm.
right? And she's like, "So how do you do that?" I said, "Well, a big part of that's networking." And she said, "Networking to get clients?" And I went, "Yes." And she went, "I'd never thought of that." And I said, "Well, what do you network for?" She said, "To get my next job." And what it is people network for different things. So you really need to start to select the people around yourself. And there's a great concept, Ruqya, a great concept. It's done by a guy called Stuart Emery, who's
Mm-hmm.
an Aussie, lives in California, and he wrote a book called Who's in Your Room.
Hmm. Okay.
Who's in your room, right? And everyone that's listening to the show, try this now, right? Now, so thank you, Stuart. Obviously, giving him credit for this. But imagine that you've got an empty room, right? And the rest of your life, for example, it could be 5 years in business, 10 years, 15, 20, 30, whatever. So you've got an empty room, right? And the room has got a one-way door,
Okay.
right? Now you are in that room.
Right.
And in that room is everything you want out of life: family, career, prospects, giving back to everything you want is in that room, right? And is it fair to say that anybody you're around, any individual you're around, every person from your family to the security guard to the taxi, everyone around you is either lifting you up and supporting you
Yep.
or pulling you back?
Yes.
There's no middle ground.
Yep.
So it's they support you or they pull you back. And sometimes it's one or the other, but on the whole, one or the other. And
Yep.
so the question is, if you're in this room with a one-way door, now imagine that anybody that you allow in that room now is with you for life.
Hmm.
Right? The question and is a one-way door. So that means that now anyone you've let in your room is going to either enhance your life or pull it back. So the question is, who's in your room?
I like that.
And
I
who are
like
you going
that.
to invite into your room? So when I go networking, I'm
Hmm.
looking for new people for my room because I don't want to be around negative people. I don't want to be around takers. I want to be around people that when you turn up and say, "Hey, I need some help," they go, "Sure, no problem." But to have that, you mentioned earlier on about paying it forward and balance and all that. The question, of course, to this one, and the key question is, if that's what you want for you, whose room are you in?
Wow. I like this.
Now, this is what I show entrepreneurs how to do because the life of an entrepreneur is really tough,
Yes.
right? Especially if you haven't got tons of money from some family member or a big investor, right?
Tell me
And
about
some
it.
people get that. Some people get that. But by the way, you have to pay
Hmm.
it back. But if you start with your self funding, it's not easy.
Yep.
So the question is, who do you want in your room during this journey? And if you've got the right people, life is easier. That means you can get clients easier, you get knowledge, you get support. But if you don't have that, you can still do the entrepreneurial journey. You
Hmm.
just need more money.
You just made me think so deeply about the people that I went and connected with recently. Won't take names, but yeah, they're either lifting you up or pulling you down. And sometimes when you're vulnerable, not everybody gets it.
Hmm.
And sometimes people pull you down because you were vulnerable at some point in life. Hmm. I think where I'm coming at is understanding how people can draw boundaries and make sure they're letting the right people into their space.
Absolutely. I think some of us, we've done this our whole lives, right? If you cast your mind back to when you were a kid, that's how you chose your friends.
Hmm.
Families are chosen for us, but even some families we split from, right? Because we decide,
Yes.
you know,
Hmm.
they say, one of the sayings in England, I don't know if it's true around the world, is you choose your friends, not your family. And what I'm saying, what I mean by that is nobody has the right to your time. That we all need to earn this on a regular basis, and so it's making sure that we contribute to our family, we contribute to our friends, and really they've got to be giving it back. Otherwise, it's taken from you, right?
Yeah.
Um,
And
and of
and you feel depleted after a point. You feel like, why is it just me constantly giving? And then you begin to question, are you being selfish? But actually, you're not. You're just taking care of yourself, which should not be an issue.
I mean, yeah, I mean, one of the concepts, of course, is the idea is to give, and keep putting it out there, and good stuff will come back. But
Hmm.
as well as I do, there's a lot of haters out there, and no matter what you do, they'll find a reason why you're terrible and you're rubbish, and you just got to say, love you, good luck, goodbye,
Hmm.
because why should they suck your energy? Life is hard enough. Go and find good people. You know,
True that.
if that person's an accountant, for example, and that's his attitude, okay, go and find another one. There's plenty of
Hmm.
people out there that deserve to be in your room. And
Absolutely.
yeah, I know you do this, Ricky. You've got great energy.
Thank
You've had
you.
some great people on your show, and I'm sure when you've asked people on your show, they're like, "Oh, how many followers have you got before I come on?"
Yep.
And exactly, but you've got some good people. But there'll be people I've heard that when people have asked them on shows, they're like, "Well, unless you've got these followers, then I'm not coming on because it's not good for me." Well, what about helping
Hmm.
someone else in their journey? I
True
saw
that.
Spencer on here the other day. Spencer's an amazing guy. He'll show up,
Yes.
he shows up left, right, and centre to turn up on these things. And I think that's the kind of people you've got it. There's two of us in this room plus the people listening, you know,
Yes.
and I think that's the thing, right?
Yes, definitely is. And I think if someone asked me how many followers, I wouldn't even pursue with wanting them on the show because I think our values don't match. And for me, it's important to connect and have that conversation with someone with who I have that resonance of values. And that's important for me.
It's interesting. It occurs to me, Ruqya, is saying this now, and for most of us, we want to live a worthwhile life, right?
Yes.
It's at the end, you know, and it makes you realize, with these shows in that perspective, even if there's only one person listening, if you can make a shift in that one person that is
Yes.
positive, it was worthwhile. It was worth the call. And it's about quality, not quantity. Like you said
Yep.
earlier on, you could have 10,000 people friends with you, but ask for a lift to the airport. It's the one that turns up. And this is my philosophy about business. I've got
Hmm.
20 odd thousand followers on LinkedIn, right? So I'm not a big LinkedIn superstar by any shape or means compared to some of the people out there. So that's a lot of people who know who I am, but I'd be interested to see who would turn up and give me a lift.
True.
And I think that's the way we need to approach this is by saying there's all these hundreds of thousands of people, but for my time and my business and where I want to get, who do I spend that time with?
That is so, so important. And I remember having a friend coming in, stop by in Dubai, and she was she had a stopover in Dubai and a flight to Kuwait. So it was more like 1 a.m. stop in, and the next flight out was at 9. And she said, "There's no point of me getting out." I said, "Just come out. Dubai never sleeps." So she did. We had a good time. I dropped her off at the airport. And what she told me, very, very humbly, getting off from my car in the morning, and she says, "Listen, next time you're in London at 2 a.m., please don't call me because I can't do this." I'm like, "It's all right." But that's honesty at the end of the day. Like letting me know that this is how it is. Great, you
Mm.
showed up, but don't expect me to. And that was fine by me. I think some friends are okay with doing that. School friends, I guess.
I suppose at least they've let you know and not let you up, not had you turn up and say, well, why aren't they coming, right? So they've
Yes.
given you their boundaries. And remember what I said at the beginning, know what to expect from people and they won't let you down,
Exactly. Yeah.
you
And
know?
and, and I yep. And I guess sometimes it's the expectations that cause friction in a relationship or in a network even for that matter. And I like what you said about even if one person is watching. I do the daily live videos on my platform. I've been doing it since May 1st, 2018. Today is day 1304 of that commitment, every single day, back to back. Thank you. And sometimes nobody's watching, and sometimes there's just one person. And it doesn't matter to me, because what I realize is someone might just show up on day 634 and click like, because that message was what they needed to receive in that moment. And so I can't cut corners just because no one's watching. I show up with as best as I can because I know someone would receive it eventually.
Yeah, and you never know which show will suddenly go viral, and then people will jump on, and guess what? They got thousands of shows to watch, right?
True that. True that. Yes. Quality over quantity. I do agree. So, yes. So, what about networking within the premises of our professional network? Not as an entrepreneur, but in the workplace environment, employment. So, would it be the same rules?
Yeah, well, the rules of giving is and contribution is the same to any relationship, right? Of course, the secret is to find out what other people want, because not everyone has the same model of the world. So if I give flowers, I don't want to give it to someone that doesn't want to see flowers, because flowers are dead and they don't want to be given dead flowers. You know what I mean? So it's about contributing in a way that people want to be contributed to. But ultimately, that's life, right? So in the workplace, one of the best contributions you can give to your boss, for example, is often to solve your own problems, make the boss look good. All right. Well, that's building a relationship. So who's going to be more lined up for promotion when it comes, or a pay rise? So the person sat next to you, do you help them out? Are you polite to the admin, or are you rude? The driver, are you rude, or are you polite? This is all relationship building. The little guy, lived in Dubai for 20 odd years now. And the security guard, I've seen a lot of people be very rude to security guards, to cleaners, the guy who does your car, very rude. You never, one, is just not right. But secondly, you never know when that guy could turn up for you. You've dropped your keys and he sees them dropped. Or you've left your video camera on the back of the seat of a taxi and you were polite to the taxi driver rather than rude. Oh, and guess what? Your video camera or your phone, he goes, oh, guess what, sir? You left your phone. But if you're rude, you might drive off with it. You know what I mean? And I think if you treat people with respect in and out of the
Yep.
workplace, that's networking.
And it's so important to acknowledge the people that you're working with as well, appreciating. I think sometimes we hold back with that appreciation, wondering how people are going to take it. Acknowledging that is so important. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, absolutely. Acknowledgement is always good. I mean, the idea at the end of the day is make people feel good, right? When people feel good with their interaction with you, they want more of it. There are, of course, companies where it's not about that. Everyone's out for themselves and they've got everything locked in the drawer, and it's all about money and winning, and that's a great environment for some people. But I think we need to choose which environment we want for us, right? And again, not everybody's the same, so it doesn't make it wrong. It just makes it different. And I think we were given that choice, and we just decide where we want to be.
I like that. Doesn't make it wrong, just makes it different. Um, Earlier in the conversation, you spoke about the significance of mentors, because everyone has one. Everyone gets there through with somebody, right? So, who have been some of the mentors, and tell me a little bit about what has shaped you.
So it's a tough one with mentors, I think, because I think we're all mentored all the way up from our parents, right, and onwards.
Yeah.
So there's a couple of obvious ones like parents and all that. But moving out of that space, I suppose, oddly enough, one of my mentors was a gentleman named Kevin Draper, who I met in Dubai. And when I first moved to Dubai, I got a job with him. And Kevin owned a business here, and that's why I came to Dubai, was to work for him. And he was a very interesting individual, and I don't want to go into too much detail. But one thing I did learn about, with him, was he was, oddly enough, even when I had a job, he was always encouraging me to go out and do my salsa at night, whereas a lot of people wouldn't. They'd been like, well, you're working for the company and that's it. And he encouraged me to do that. And luckily, I used to bring a lot of business from it. So he clicked on, realized he'd done the right thing. But oddly enough, I also saw a lot of things he did well, and I saw a lot of things I didn't agree with. So that's a form of mentorship, right? And he's, we're still in touch to this day, and everything's good. And I think a mentor can teach you the good and the stuff that you don't agree with, and you take it forward. So he was one. There's a group with Asentiv, so I'm involved with Asentiv around the world, and there was the partners in Asentiv were great mentors, because at the time when I joined, they were, like my gurus. So there was Dr. Ivan Meisner, Mike Macedonio, Eddie Esposito, and Dawn Lyons, who are all states bound over that way, and then no longer involved. So I think one of the privileges of life is to find a mentor, learn what you can. Sometimes you leapfrog them.
Yes,
doesn't mean you have to stay below them, and then you go off on a different tangent. But I think it's always important to acknowledge them. And I always like to say thank you to a gentleman actually called BJ Shara. I think you might know.
BNI interviewed him a couple of times.
So BJ recognized something in me years ago, and started to push me in a certain direction with BNI, which led to what I'm doing now. So again, if BJ hadn't seen me, then I suppose that. And I've got to say my wife as well, obviously.
Yes, you do.
No, seriously, she's just incredible. She's run a school of a couple of hundred people, and just actually she's more of a natural networker, even though she doesn't realize it, than I am. And she's brilliant at all those little nuances that we've talked about, the way you build relationships and help people, way more than I am. And she just does it naturally. So I still learn from her,
Yes, I think each and every experience is teaching you something. Each and every person is teaching you something in life. It's just about having that awareness and acknowledging that, yes, this is what I learned today.
Yeah, it's interesting you say that, because we talked about I agree with you completely. Anyone can teach you. Years ago, I remember when I was teaching salsa in a part of Dubai. I can't remember the name now. It was the old Regis Plaza Hotel. Anyway, I was parked outside. I used to park there every day to go and teach, and then I'd go upstairs. And there was a guy out there called Ali, and Ali used to just clean cars. He used to work for himself, cleaning cars for a couple of dirhams or whatever. And I used to see him every week and just wave at him. And then one day I parked my car, and he knew that I was going to go to the machine, put a dirham in, and go back and put the ticket in. And next thing I know, he's walking over towards me. He'd put a dirham in the machine from his own pocket, and he walked to me with a ticket, so I didn't need to go and get it. Right? I put it on the cart, and I'm just like, wow. And that's, so that's a form of reciprocity, right? He's done me a favor, but in a clever way, it also makes me feel guilty if I don't let him wash my car, because he's been so proactive. Now, the interesting thing, this blew me away so much. I actually started speaking to him, and long story short, I ended up getting him a job at the Image Works, which is where I worked, and he became a driver. So he went from cleaning cars to his dream job at the time, all because he was proactive. And I'll never forget him. For years, he used to ring me up and say, "Hey, how's it going?" and all that. And I learned from that.
It makes a big difference. Just taking that step forward definitely makes a difference. So tell me about the significance of movement. And this could be in terms of networking, or you can talk about it from the salsa perspective, wherever. You can take it wherever you'd like to.
Oh my goodness.
Hey, Phil, you seem to have forgotten. I never asked you run-of-the-mill questions. It has to be different.
Movement, that's got me thinking. I think movement for me is, I think there's a number of different ones. One movement would be making sure that you're always physically able, particularly in running your own business. I think you've got to stay mentally and physically fit, because it's tough enough anyway, and you don't want to be dealing with illness if you're trying to do that as well. So look at eating right, which I'm a big fan of, exercising right, mentally staying right, finding that time off. So movement, always making sure your body's warm, because when you're 20, you can bounce. When you're 40, 50, it doesn't bounce anymore. So you want to make sure you're all right. And the movement, I think, is always being ready to, on the other side, professionally, always being available for, looking out for opportunities. You never, everything, all the way from the UK, everything that I've arrived to do today has been because I've been willing to move into an area where I wasn't comfortable. And they've all come from people I've met. And at the time, I remember thinking, oh, do I really want to do this? And it's like, how can I not? And I think one of the things that always motivated me to make a change, actually, was imagining it was 3 years later when I'd had success and telling my mates about the success. And I think so. I suppose that's a form of forward, visioning, right?
Yes.
So I remember coming to Dubai, and again, I had a very stable job in the UK. It was good money, and it was just like, you know what? I need to try something else. And how cool would it be to tell my friends I did it? So
Exactly.
movement for me is two things.
Yep.
What about you?
And for me, it's so when I look at movement, I'm looking at not waiting to be fully ready. It's like having an opportunity and taking that leap of faith, because that's pretty much how my journey has been. I'm a graduate of science, and I have 21 years of media experience behind me. Interviewed you guys. 2010 was when a lot of things shifted for me. I got to interview amazing people for Friday Magazine, you being one of them. And NLP kept coming up as an awareness. And that's where I went into NLP and other things. But I wasn't ready for it at the time. I think a lot of people waste time making that decision. And I think ideas love speed. So movement comes up for me over there.
Yeah, the speed of implementation.
Yes.
Get on it. Doesn't need to be perfect. Yeah?
Exactly. I think the concept of perfection is flawed.
Well, again, different models of the world, right? If I'm driving over a bridge, I'd like it to be perfect, or going up to the moon, I'd like it to be perfect. But I think at the end of the day, you're right. For most of us, is 99% okay. Is 98% okay, and half the time we're paralyzed with trying to make perfection, and we're trying to hit 99%, and the people we're trying to do it for are quite happy with 78, and they end up not getting it because we're stuck. So yeah, I think you're right. There's different dynamics. But yeah, I think there's a time for perfection and a time not for it.
True. And what about waiting till you're fully ready?
Again, I suppose it depends what it is, right? Yeah, I'm a great believer that no one, particularly in a marketing sense, no one can buy for you if they don't know you exist.
Yeah.
And sitting there making the most perfect design or the most perfect flyer, okay, someone might go, oh well, I don't like that color, or that's not that, but the other 90 people that see it won't care. So I think there's some things you just need to get out there and get going.
And what are some things that you've done, get out and get going kind of an attitude?
Definitely some of the networking events I've run. I kind of like the, I've just done one now, and it's nowhere near as organized in terms of payment links and all that kind of thing that I'd like or done in the past. But I've had some changes, new systems and that, and I'm like, well, it's not as efficient as it was. But at the end of the day, it's just about letting people know and how they turn up. So I can sit there and make it efficient for another couple of months, or I can get out there and start meeting people and start shaking, saying, hey, how's it going? So that's the most recent thing I've done. And it's just that, sometimes it's just like, oh, it's not like I want it, but the end story is to get out there.
Get it moving and get the ball rolling. So what advice do you have for someone who doesn't have issues with networking and building relationships, but when it's attached to a potential benefit from their side, they find it ethically hard and refrain? So what I'm saying is, when I think, if I got this right, if someone looks at it as a relationship of benefits, they hold back. They feel like, okay, I shouldn't be doing this.
You mean as in they be asking too much, trying to take from the other person?
Yeah. If they feel like they're taking too much, they might hold back.
Yeah, you've actually hit a really interesting point on the head there. So number one, we've said it before, networking is not about selling.
Yep.
Right? Selling is taking money for services, right? So we've got to get that out of our head straight away. Networking is about having a conversation where you get mutual benefit. Okay, that's number one, right? So number one, the whole taking thing tends to come from people not understanding what it is, right? But there is another dynamic, and that's where you turn around and you say, okay, well, if it's mutually beneficial, then I need people to help me. Phil, you're saying if I'm going to do this, then I need them to help me. And the other dynamic is they're not comfortable with helping or asking for help.
Yeah.
So that's where they sometimes feel, well, I don't want to keep taking, you know, because you get people that are very happy taking, and then you got people that are not comfortable taking. Okay, and in the middle, there's a middle ground in the end. So here's an interesting question for you. If I was going to say to you or anyone that's listening to this show right now, are you comfortable and you really enjoy asking for help?
I'm
Right.
one of those.
You're not, right? So it's like,
No.
hands kind of, nah, really. Some people will, but the majority of people are not, particularly entrepreneurs, right? I can do this all on my own. Anyway,
Yep.
so,
My
but if I said,
baby.
yeah, but if I said to you, do you like helping people? Does it make you feel good? Right, now look at your energy, right?
Yeah.
So look at the disconnect. So the interesting thing is, actually, when we don't ask for help, we're stopping people from feeling as good as you just felt there.
Ah.
Right? Now, if you still feel awkward to ask, well, how about you do something for them first? So what you've done is you find that balance. Well, I've given to you first, and what if I give you twice or 3 or 4 times? And now, so what's happened is the goodwill bank is so big, that person is probably like, will you please ask me for something? I need to help you, because as human beings, we need that kind of balance. You know, and if you don't believe me, it's, you know, if I buy you a cup of coffee, we go for a cup of coffee now. What's the next thing you're doing next time we go, or even there?
I'd like to buy you one.
You need to buy me one back, because we need to
Yes.
find balance.
Yeah.
You know,
I'd
someone
like
buys
that.
you a meal,
Yes.
someone does that, someone gives you a lift. You need to find balance, and that's exactly what it is with helping and networking. If you can find that balance, if you can give enough of the stuff that people need, they'll have to want to give back because it's in us. And if they don't want to give back, you don't want to be around them anyway. Go and let them be in your competition's room.
Yes.
You don't
Wouldn't
need
that be nice?
you don't need them.
Send them away. Send them away. All right. So the question was specifically addressing my internal intention before even reaching the request or benefit phase. Tell us more.
Say it again. You're a very deep question. Say it again.
It is, I was specifically addressing my internal intention even before reaching the request phase. So I think this is about this
Okay. So
internal conversation.
okay. All these are questions that are coming in. So I mean, yeah, I mean, I think it's something we need to kind of get over. Is if you, well, it's going back before that again. There's nothing wrong asking for help. Why, as long as your intention is to make balance. And like I said before, if you know, but this is what human beings do all the time when we need stuff, when we need help. And why shouldn't we ask people for help? But here's the thing: help them first. What's wrong with that?
I think
And
sometimes it's also, sorry, I think sometimes it's also a cultural thing.
you're right. Could well be. Could well be. But and this is the interesting thing. It's one of the things I learned about Dubai. Just because it's okay in my part of the world doesn't mean it is here. And you're right. There is a cultural element, but I think in every culture there's a way to work around that, right? If we really want to, and our intention in our hearts is to make their life better, then there has to be a way. And by the way, maybe you do 3 or 4 things for them. You know, but a relationship shouldn't be, I think, starting with what can I take from them, and then everything else is a strategy just to take. Well, that's the wrong intention, right? You're using a relationship and you're using reciprocity as a weapon, and it's not meant to be as a weapon.
True. So I always enjoy playing the devil's advocate, and one of the things that I hear a lot about these days is what's in it for me. As much as I love giver's gain, the other time I was speaking to somebody and they literally pounced at me saying, you need to consider what's in it for me. I'm like, okay, And I kind of backed away because that whole tone, although we were chatting, just felt a little awkward. So tell me about what's in it for me culture. I'm sure you've
Well,
come
there's different
across it.
levels. There is, of course, different levels of what's in it for me, right? We've talked about the people where it's only about them,
Yeah.
right? But at the end of the day, everyone on the planet listens to WIIFM. What's in it for me radio?
What's in it for me?
Yeah, everybody. And, it could be the person, we all know people that are really lovely and they just give and give and give, right? Well, what's in it for them? They feel good.
Yeah.
Giving makes them feel good. So
Yes.
there you go. What's in it for them? They feel good. So the thing is, when we have a relationship with a wife or a husband, what's in it for us? Well, everyone's different, but for most of us, it's security or love or respect or whatever that is. There's the whole of life is what's in it for us. Now, it doesn't have to be a negative way of looking at it. It implies that it's negative, but actually it might not be. Because like I said, if what's in it for you is feeling good about helping people and improving their lives, great. Yeah. So what's in it for me normally comes from a sales perspective. When you're pitching your service or you're explaining what you do, you need to put it in the context of how's their life better as a result of you, whatever it is that you're doing. And the trouble is, most people, particularly from a networking perspective or a sales perspective, they're doing it in what's good for them, not what's good for the client or the person they've met. So what it can mean in a positive context rather than negative context, which is, I think, what you were saying, the other guy said to you, he's hit it with a kind of a negative concept. If you go from the positive way of looking at it, it's basically, how do you get that person to communicate, to be with you, to buy from you or whatever, but by making their life better. So there's two ways of looking at that.
Yeah, there's always different ways of looking at it. So what's in it for me versus okay, I don't like this word, but yes, altruistic, loving relationships. Yes.
Okay, so if they wanted to what do they mean by altruistic loving relationship? If they could be a little bit more specific than that.
I think we're looking at platonic, out of this world kind of a loving relationship. But even in that, you have what's in it for me, because you love somebody that way because that makes you feel happy, right? That gives you joy, that fills you up with love when you love someone that way.
I believe so. Yeah, everything's what's in it for me, but just depends which way you choose to say that. I mean, you mentioned giver's gain, and giver's gain is reciprocity, right? If I help you, you want to help me. Well, that whole concept can come from wishing to do well, right? But as I said, I'm going to help you and you're going to help me and the world's a better place. But that can be used as a weapon. What I mean by that is, well, I've given to you 10 times, where's mine?
And you're keeping count.
Well, there you're using it as a weapon. You're paying it forward strategically so you can get, right? And that might work for a little bit, but it's not really where it comes from.
Nope.
And on the flip side, you may choose and say, well, look, I have given to that person 10 times and they just really don't care and they're off doing this and all that. And I know they're a horrible person. So guess what? Love you, goodbye. Well, maybe I'll aim that at somebody who does care and does deserve it. Might be different. Yeah. But you're doing it because you want someone to appreciate it, not because they're trying to abuse your goodwill. I think there's a difference. But you still give, but you shift the giving to someone that appreciates it.
You shift the giving to someone else, and you also understand that person's on a different journey altogether, perhaps. And there's no alignment, so you go separate paths, and that's perfectly fine. So the next question up here is, how can I convert my networking groups, friends, into potential clients? Phil, thank you in advance.
And you might not be able to. Yeah. So this is one of the challenges we find when people they leave corporates, particularly. So if you've had a big job, big company job, and then you go and start your own business, and one of the most frustrating things is that your network is only your friends and your colleagues. You don't really know anyone outside that, and so immediately, how am I going to grow my business or whatever can become tough, because what you may realize when you really look at it is your friends may never buy from you. And your network may never buy from you because you've actually got the wrong network. What you need to do is start building a new one. Your friends will probably be there to support you emotionally, and in any way they can, but it doesn't mean they can buy from you. So that might be one of the dynamics. And of course, it depends what you're selling. If you're doing a B2C, it might be slightly different. But I remember half the people I worked with when I was in a corporate and I went off on my own. No, just the wrong people with the wrong connections. They had the right intention, they just didn't have it. So that's one thing. But that said, I've also worked with people who've we've actually looked through their existing network to highlight the people that could be. But then, of course, you've got an awkward conversation of, well, how do I have that conversation because they're friends? And you need to do it in an appropriate manner.
They say you shouldn't mix. Sorry, they say you shouldn't mix friends and business. I mean, for instance, I do coaching, so I do not coach my friends because I know too much about them. So I think that's where you're also coming from, isn't it?
Maybe. I mean, personally, I can't think of a better dynamic to do business with very good friends, because I know I'd never let a friend down. Now, if they've got that mentality as well, fantastic.
Yeah.
And I think there's nothing better than that dynamic. I think there is, of course, sometimes you choose not to because you may not feel it's just not appropriate, in which case you refer them to someone you highly trust to look after them. But a lot of my clients have become very good friends. Very good friends. Doesn't always work the other way around. As in friend becomes client, maybe again because of the dynamic. But I see no problem with having good friends as clients as long as there's mutual respect and we both make sure we do a very good job. And let's face it, if your friendship's that good, it should be able to handle a couple of hurdles as long as it's all professional and done with respect.
I like that. And I think the key word here is respect. For me, at least for me, that's the key word here. We've been through a phase where a lot of work was done online, and now we're transitioning back to the new normal, like some people like to call it. Tell us about how networking has evolved during these few months.
Oh, blimey. So, I mean, I remember right at the beginning of the COVID thing, and of course we all had everything in my life was delivered in real environments, right? Real networking, real training rooms, and of course. But do you remember we didn't even have Zoom?
Yes.
At the beginning of COVID.
Yeah,
we didn't have it. You couldn't use Skype, couldn't use Zoom. There's one or two really lucky people for big companies that had it, but the rest of us didn't. And so obviously because it changed, that opened up a whole new way of doing business. So of course we had to become accustomed to that, which took a while. Maybe in other places of the world they were used to it. So the whole online space opened up, and I think it's certainly opened up a lot more efficiencies in business. We now don't need to waste an hour driving up and down Shakeside Road. We can, jump on a call, have a call, and get a relatively decent understanding of who the other person is visually because we can see so many of the senses. I don't think it'll beat the real connect, the real extra stuff, that extra bit you get from meeting the person in real life. There's just some magic, and you'll never beat that. But it doesn't mean you have to continue to meet people all the time face to face. Like I said, you can still get 70, 80% of the conversation, particularly when you already have a relationship, and you can save yourself a ton of time. So I think it's going to go both ways. I think people are going to continue to network online to stay efficient, but really offline is that secret sauce. In fact, I've just written a new book, and my book is called I Just Need a Hug.
And the one before that was You're on Mute.
Oh, yeah, that was done at the beginning of COVID.
Right.
And I wrote that because, of course, everyone was up. You're on mute on every single call. So I wrote that. And then I did another one called Branding Schmanding, which I also wrote during COVID. But the new one actually is because, and it's literally days away from coming out. So you're the first people to know about it.
Thank you.
It was because it's a great conversation actually that we're talking about now, because for years now people have been saying, particularly the younger generation, why do we need to meet face to face? We've got Facebook, we've got LinkedIn, I've got all my friends on Facebook. We were saying earlier about they're not real friends, but they've got this, they've got the phone. Well, why do we need to meet, right? And so everybody was saying that, and people were starting to believe it. And then what happens with COVID? Right, we're all talking, doing these Zoom meetings with our family all around the world, and everybody's connecting, and we're all happy, and we're kind of there. But we're doing exactly what we said that was all that was needed. And then I go out and I see people all over the place, myself included. And you'd walk up to people and it would be just like, I just need a hug.
Gosh, yes.
There's
I
something, right? And so I've explored that whole dynamic.
Wow, I am definitely reading that book. When I speak about missing my kids, I say it's been more than 2 years since I've hugged my son. I don't even say it's seen them. It's more about it's been more than 2 years since I've hugged my son. I need this to get over now. So yes, I hear you, completely hear you. In fact, yesterday I was at an event and there were people, and it was more like, okay, do you shake hands? Do you fist bump? Do you hug? And then there were some who were like, I want to hug. Yes, it's
Mm.
okay. So yes, we definitely miss
I
that.
think people are finding their own way going forward, right? I mean, we're
Yeah,
in a lovely part of the world, I think, where I love the hand on the heart, you know, uh,
yeah. Say
welcome.
thank you.
I think it's just beautiful. I mean, for me, I
Yes,
could do this all the time. I think it's absolutely gorgeous.
yes.
But again, is people choose the way they're doing it. And you said, I think people are hugging already. Other people are fist bumping.
Hmm.
Other people are still doing the hand on heart thing. I think we're all taking it. If you're hugging, then you're probably looking away and kind of doing that, taking a big step.
No, I think
But
it's some of
people
that.
choose him, right?
Yep. So quickly, three things that people can do to make their network powerful. Just three things, and then I'll let you go. It's late in the evening. Thank you for doing this. So
Oh,
yes.
all good, all good. Three things. Number one, we've talked about, make sure you give to your community. Make sure that you're always giving. Yeah. So imagine you've got a little radar on your head, and your little radar on your head is always listening for people saying, I can't, I don't know how to, I can't, I've help, I've got a problem. And every time somebody says that, that's a solution that somebody else could be providing.
Hmm.
So always run around this little antenna on your head and try and help people as much as possible. That'll be good one. Number two is always be networking up. Always find people that are a little bit more successful around you and surround yourself with them. We become the average of the people we are around. So
They
if we
say
want to
your
be more,
sorry
sorry?
to interrupt. I just had to ask you this. They say your network is your net worth. I've heard that so often.
Yeah, well, I mean,
If
it comes from Napoleon Hill, and all these guys said it, that if you take the average, if you take the 5 people you spend your most time around, right, add their revenues, add their income together, and then divide by 5, they'll often say that your personal earnings are within $2,000 of that average.
wow.
Right? But if you think even without money, who did you hang around with at school? Well, kids like you. Who did the rich kids hang around? The rich kids. Who did the bright kids hang around? The bright kids. And so what we do is we naturally find our balance. So if we want to be more successful, then I don't just mean money. I just mean successful in life. Find people who are that level above, and find ways of joining that community, contributing to it, and again, not taking from it, like we said before, but contributing. And you can start to network up.
Hmm.
So that'll be the other
Um,
one.
um, Before you say the third one, what if you and you're networking with a level up, people start looking down at you?
You're in the wrong network.
Hmm.
You want to
Those
find
with
people you want people that want to help you get there, because their mentality is to give back, to be a mentor, to help out. And this is what we need to look at. If the people around us are not helping us, if they're nasty, if they're trying to steal, if they're trying to put you down, if they don't want to help you, find somebody else, because there's lots of good people out there.
And I think that's what I was talking about when I said I let the wrong people into my room during a vulnerable phase of my life. So, yeah, we learn.
We've all done it.
We've all done it, yes, and we learn. So,
You
great.
just need to use that little trapdoor at the bottom of your room, the one we didn't talk about. Just push them through it.
Thank you. So, point number three.
I think point number 3 for me is walk the talk.
I like that.
If you say it, do it. That's huge for me. Yeah, and just I've got to stick another one onto that, and that's just be respectful. Return phone calls and emails, and just respect people. Because you'd be amazed at how many people come to me saying, Phil, I need to grow my business through relationships, and then they don't return emails and phone calls. And it's like, well, I could save you a ton of money. Just return your phone calls and emails, because you've just failed at the first hurdle, which is respect and your personal brand.
Respect is definitely so important in relationships, in creating that network and just that trust. right?
It's a small world.
It is. What goes around comes around. So just put out the best, and the best will come back to you. Sounds very cliche, but that's how I see it.
Absolutely.
So thank you, Phil, for your time. And this has been a really, really amazing conversation. Is there anything else that you'd like to add as closing comments?
No, it's just anyone. All I'd say is anyone is listening to this. If you want to reach out and connect, I love to connect, as you've gathered. So feel free. I know the show. Obviously, if you are listening to this show, make sure you push it out and help give Ruqya a little bit more visibility. You know, he's sitting here taking all this great knowledge, pay it back by sharing her show. And of course, I'd love to connect with anyone that's listening as well.
Thank you so much. And again, as Phil said, please push it forward and also subscribe if you had a good conversation while listening in. Thank you so much. Have a great rest of the evening, day, wherever you are in the world. Thank you.